Welcome everybody to techpb.com. I'm your host today, Michael Phillips, and what I'm going to do today is show you how to take apart and clean and service your Halo or Empire loader. First thing you want to do is get yourself a generally a number 1 or a number 2 screwdriver. Now here's a little trick that I did was I used an automatic screwdriver, and what I did was I took a Dremel tool and dremeled down the back of the bit here. Just as I was spinning it, I sanded it down. This way it allowed me to get into the little holes here on the Halo loader. Now the first thing you're going to want to do is unscrew all of the screws on the right hand side that hold your Halo together and your battery. Go ahead and pop out your battery cover. Go ahead and open up your lid. Watch your battery. Then what you want to do is take your fingers and basically open them up both at the same time. Put it into your battery and where your lid is at. Open them both up at the same time, and we should be able to slowly pry this apart. Now sometimes some of these screws are going to grab and hang on a little tighter, so there we go. And you basically want to lift this up all at the same time. Looks like it's starting to pop up. Sometimes the screws will grab onto the plastic. All right, now we got it up. Now the first thing I've always learned to do is just go ahead and take your screws out and set them aside. You actually have 4 long screws, a short screw, and 2 medium screws that hold your Halo together. Your 4 long screws go on the top, 2 in the back, and 1 in the middle. Short screw goes at the bottom, and the 2 medium screws, there's 1 in the front and the one that holds the battery on, the battery cover on. And now we're inside the loader here. Now what you want to do is go ahead and remove your drive cone, your board, and your back plate. Now the most important thing here is your board. Now what I've learned to do is to grab the board from the top and the bottom and carefully rock it out, rocking it up and rocking it down to break it loose of the mount that's inside the shell. Now what you can do is once this is loose and you can see it wiggles out, you can just carefully remove your drive cone assembly and your board cover. Now something else you want to be really careful with is your this lid here. Now when you go ahead and remove the lid inside, there's going to be a spring. What you just want to do is make sure you do not lose that spring. It's very small. Typically what I've done is I just flip the lid over and put it inside there. Also with the screws, I generally use the battery cover to hold all the screws. So now that you have your lid apart, set that aside. Now what happens with a lot of players is the inside of their drive cone and the inside of their raceway gets covered in paint, especially with the speed feeds. What you have to do to get this out in order to clean out what's inside it is go ahead and pop off your spring, go ahead and pop out your beads, and then what you are going to have to do is unscrew the top part of the raceway. And what we're also going to do is we're also going to take apart and pull out and clean the eyes. Now the eyes are held in place by this kind of electrical tape. You can reuse it. Just set it aside. Just make sure that it's clean. So now you got to screw up there at the top, and you got to screw up down here where the eyes are at. And unscrew that. And you can pull off this other piece of electrical tape that holds the battery wire and the eye wire. Now that both of these screws are out, you can just take your finger and pop off the top of your raceway. Now if you've broken a ball inside your gun, this is generally very dirty, so you can just kind of clean this area out, clean your eyes out. And then now with the drive cone, go ahead and unscrew this top screw. Go ahead and pull out your drive cone. And that's about it. That should be just about everything that you need to do to maintain your halo. Now, a place where a lot of people get tripped up with their board is when they're putting it back together again. Make sure that the little silver things that you see here on the top of the connectors are facing up. The right side is going to go to your battery. Your left side is going to go to your eyes. Just be really careful when you're putting this back together that you want to make sure that this is obviously facing in the correct direction. Okay, now that we have this completely apart, we clean this off. We clean out the inside of your raceway. Take a squeegee, put it inside here, and clean this out. Now we're ready to put it back together again. Basically, what we'll do is we'll kind of go in reverse. We'll take your catch cup, put it down into your gun, put it down into your raceway. Now here's the most important part and probably the most confusing part on a halo. You have to do what's called winding the spring. How you wind the spring is inside of this little circular piece here. You put your spring, and what I usually do is I put the notch that's here at 12 o'clock. Now you'll notice that on your halo, on your drive cone, you have also a notch on your drive cone. Now I'm going to do this a couple of times to show you how to do this properly, because I've seen a lot of people screw this up. Go ahead and, as this is lined up at 12 o'clock, take your notch, put it at 9 o'clock on your drive cone, set it down there. Now you'll notice that there's no spring tension on this yet. We have to do what's called winding the spring. With the bottom cup at 12 o'clock, that notch is at 12 o'clock, what you do is you wind your drive cone from 9 o'clock to 12 o'clock, lift it up about 1/4 of an inch, go over and push it back down again. You're going to notice that now you have tension, which is what you should have when you're putting apart your halo. I'm going to do that 2 more times because this is how many times I've seen people screw this up. Okay, put your bottom cup at 12 o'clock, put your spring to where the tab is at 11:30 and at 9 o'clock, and then find your tab on your drive cone. Set it down at the tab is now facing at 9 o'clock. You're going to wind it to 12, lift it up, push it back down again, and check to make sure that you have spring tension. Do that 1 more time. Make sure that the tab on your bottom cup is at 12 o'clock. Find the tab that is on your drive cone, put that at 9 o'clock, wind it, lift it up, press it back down, check to make sure that you have tension. If you've done this correctly, you should have tension. Now that you have tension and you've wound your drive cone properly, go ahead and put your screw in there. I know a lot of people will say, oh, you should wind it twice, it's going to go faster. No, it won't. Don't even waste your time. Just do it the way it's supposed to. All right, check 1 more time. We've got tension. That's wound how it should be. Now let's go ahead and get the top piece back on it. Now it's got a couple little tabs that need to line up properly in order for this to sit down flush. Okay, and we can see that this is all flush. Everything's in there perfect. We'll go ahead and put in the screw. Actually, 2 screws. We got the top one, which uses a medium-sized screw, and we've got the bottom one, which uses a tiny screw. This is why I generally recommend a #1 screwdriver bit. The #2s are generally a little too thick to pick up some of these smaller screws. Now go ahead and put your eyes back into place. Take your piece of electrical tape. Now, if this is really covered in paint, covered in oil, what I suggest doing is grabbing yourself a piece of electrical tape,